He texted her, "Dinner at Mom's. Love you." What he didn't know was that she was sitting 3 tables away, watching him kiss someone else. Have you ever trusted someone so deeply, only to realize they lied with a straight face? Have you ever seen the truth for yourself, but they were still texting you like everything was perfect? This story is not about screaming. It's not about throwing a drink or making a scene. It's about the quiet power of walking away, after seeing everything you needed to know. So if you believe dignity speaks louder than drama, and if you've ever been lied to while someone smiled in your face, stay with us. You're watching Mr. Charles Stories, where we don't just tell stories. We tell lessons, real ones. Now's a good time to like, comment and subscribe if you believe quiet exits say everything they need to. The airport was half empty, and so was Nerisse. She pulled her coat tighter as she stepped off the jet bridge, dragging a carry-on that still had the DC tag on it. She was supposed to be there another night, but the weather had cleared. A flight opened up. She took it. No one knew she was home. Not even Griffin. Not the man who told her he loved her that morning. Not the man who said he couldn't wait to see her again Sunday. Not the man who had, for the last 2 years, built a perfect image of partnership with her. She texted him from the cab, back early, going to swing by downtown to grab something to eat. There was no reply. She figured he was probably at his mom's already, eating, talking, maybe teasing her absence like he always did. She smiled to herself at the thought. That smile would die in 30 minutes. She walked into Lunette, a rooftop restaurant they both loved, quiet lighting, expensive wine, the kind of place where everything whispered wealth. She wasn't there to see him. She just wanted something warm and familiar after a long day. The hostess greeted her with a soft smile. "You're alone this evening, Miss Calder?" She nodded. "Table for one." She didn't need the best seat. She just wanted space. But then, as she passed the 3rd row of tables, her breath caught. There he was. Griffin, not looking flustered, not rushing out the door, not calling her, but leaning in, smiling, glass of red wine in hand, and sitting across from him, a woman, blonde, draped in silk, her laugh too loud for this kind of place, her hand resting on his like they'd done this before. Nerisse blinked, steadying herself. She sat down slowly at her assigned table, 3 rows back, out of sight, but not out of pain. Her phone buzzed. "Dinner at Mom's tonight. Love you. Can't talk, babe. Mom's telling stories. I miss you." She didn't reply. She didn't even frown. She just watched. And in that moment, something inside her shifted. Griffin reached for the other woman's wine glass, adjusted it slightly, then leaned in to whisper something. She laughed again, too loud. His hand brushed hers. Then, like muscle memory, he checked his phone, typed, smiled to himself, put it away. Nerisse didn't flinch. She took out her phone. Screenshot, timestamp, proof, but more than that, clarity. Because what hurt wasn't just the other woman. It was the fact that he didn't even feel guilty. He lied with ease. He smiled while doing it. He was practiced. She had loved him with her future. He had loved her for his convenience. The waiter approached her with a menu. She smiled, waved it off. "Just the check, please. I won't be staying long." She paid for a meal she didn't eat, left a tip for service she barely used. And then she stood. She didn't look at Griffin again. She didn't storm. She didn't cry. She walked, and the wind outside didn't cut as sharp as his silence. By the time she got to her cousin's place, the sky had turned navy blue. Ari opened the door wearing sweatpants and rage. "You said you were coming in Sunday," she muttered, pulling Nerisse into a hug. "I landed early." Ari pulled back. "You okay?" Nerisse took a slow breath. "I saw him." Ari froze. "What?" "At Lunette, with someone else. He texted me while she was feeding him dessert." Ari was quiet for a second. Then, "Say the word, and we burn his Bentley." Nerisse laughed. "First time all night." "No." "Why not?" "Because I don't need revenge. I need clarity." Griffin called, texted, tried video chats, left voice notes that ranged from sweet to panicked. She didn't answer. She stayed with Ari, ate in silence, slept with her phone on Do Not Disturb, and on the third night, she made her decision. Not just about Griffin, but about who she was willing to be. On the fourth night, she finally sent him a text. Dinner, same table, lunette. 7 p.m. No other words, no questions, no emotion. She wasn't coming to yell. She was coming to end it. Lunette was quieter than usual. The weekday crowd hadn't picked up yet. It was too early for late-night diners and too late for the happy hour crowd. But the lights still glowed low, and the string quartet near the back played soft jazz like nothing had changed. Griffin arrived 5 minutes early. Of course he did. He always liked to appear put together, like timing proved character. He wore the same black coat she bought him last fall, with the suede collar, and subtle stitching he'd once said made him feel important but invisible. That night, he wanted to look harmless. He saw her and smiled instantly. "Hey." "You're early." She didn't smile back. "So are you." He pulled the chair for her. She didn't sit. She walked to the one she chose, the seat that faced the row where she'd watched him just 4 nights ago. He took the hint and sat opposite her. For a long second, they didn't speak. The waiter came over, recognized them from before, and greeted them like regulars. "Your usual Pinot Noir, Miss Calder?" She paused. "Sparkling water." Griffin raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. He ordered a bourbon, neat. Once the waiter walked off, he leaned forward. "Nerys, I don't know what you think you saw." She slid her phone across the table. The message sat open, plain and time-stamped. "Dinner at Mom's. Love you. Can't talk, babe. Mom's telling stories." She pulled something else from her bag. A receipt. Also time-stamped. Same restaurant. Same time. 3 tables away. He blinked once. She didn't speak. She waited. Griffin's fingers curled over the edge of the table. It wasn't serious. Nerys tilted her head. "You kissed her. You let her feed you cake. You wiped her lipstick off your face." He shifted. "I panicked. She's from a past deal. She needed to talk. It wasn't romantic. You lied to my face." "I didn't lie. You texted me from a table across the room, and you said you missed me while another woman was kissing your neck. I didn't mean for it to go that far." She sat still. "You used to say I was your peace," she said. He nodded slowly. "But the truth is, I was your convenience, your structure, your polish. That's not fair. I was your trophy, something you could post, bring to dinners, but never really protect." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. She didn't need him to speak. "I'm not your accessory. I'm not your fallback. I'm not the woman you text love you to while another mouth is feeding you lies." His voice cracked, soft this time. "I made a mistake." She cut him off. "You made a choice." Silence. Heavy. Final. He looked smaller suddenly, like the weight of her calmness had crushed his defense more than any shouting ever could have. "I was going to propose again," he murmured. "This month. I had a plan. I just needed to." She stood. He stopped talking. The waiter approached with their drinks. She nodded politely, took her sparkling water, and placed 2 20s beneath the glass. "Thank you," she told the waiter softly. Then, turning to Griffin, "You had a good woman. You ruined that with a text." He stood as if he could stop her. She walked out before he could try. Outside, the wind brushed her coat open. She didn't bother to fix it. Her pace was steady. Her spine was tall. She didn't cry. Not on the sidewalk, not in the cab, not when she walked back into Ari's apartment and hung up her coat. "You did it?" Ari asked from the kitchen. Nerys nodded once. Ari handed her a bowl of warm soup. "You hungry?" She shrugged. "I could eat." They sat. No loud emotions, no rehashing. Nerys didn't need validation. She had truth. She had dignity, and she had silence. That night, when she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, she replayed none of Griffin's words. Not his explanations, not his regret, not his flimsy promises. She replayed her own voice. Clear, unshaking, final. I'm not your accessory. I'm not your fallback. You made a choice. She closed her eyes. Sleep didn't come easy, but it came clean. And that was a start. By morning, she blocked his number. Not out of spite, but necessity. He didn't need another door to try and unlock. The house he lived in had already collapsed. She pulled up her schedule. Work needed her. Clients were waiting. Staff needed direction. Life was moving forward. She wasn't broken. She was awake. Fully. And for once, the text she sent wasn't to him. It was to herself. You're done being convenient. You're becoming whole. The day began. And so did the woman he underestimated. If you've ever seen the truth before they confessed, if you've ever been loved with lies while they kissed someone else behind your back, and if you believe a quiet walkout speaks louder than any fight, like this video, comment with a "if you've ever been there," and subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories, where we don't chase drama. We tell stories that choose dignity. The world didn't pause when her engagement ended. Emails kept arriving. Clients still needed approvals. The city's skyline still begged for better lines and stronger vision. And Nerisse called her? She showed up. Every morning she arrived at Stonewell Design Company, precisely at 8:47 a.m., not because she had to, but because structure calmed her. It was something Griffin used to admire. Said it grounded him. She now understood why. He liked her calm because he didn't have to be. He liked her order because it let him be careless. He liked her loyalty because it freed him from accountability. She wasn't bitter. She was clear. And clarity is what had been missing for years. She sat in her glass-walled office, fingers wrapped around a warm mug of ginger. Tea. Staring out at the sharp corners of a building she helped design. It was a wellness center now, full of soft lighting, natural stone, recycled wood, and spaces meant to restore people. Funny, she'd been building restoration for others, while slowly erasing herself. Boss? Nerisse turned. It was Tyler, her junior associate. Kind eyes, brilliant sketches, still a little shy in meetings. You okay to approve the West Loop elevations? She asked, holding a tablet. Nerisse nodded. Bring it in. She reviewed the work, redlined with precision, encouraged where needed. The team left motivated, and Nerisse sat back in her chair, remembering how far she'd come. She didn't owe Griffin a single inch of her firm. She started it 3 years before meeting him. The only thing he brought into her business was his name, and that name had never signed her payroll. Still, people had whispered when they started dating, "She's lucky." She leveled up. He elevated her brand. They didn't know the nights she stayed up editing blueprints by hand. The mornings she skipped meals to pitch affordable housing to banks who only trusted the white male-led firms. The times she was talked over in boardrooms, only for Griffin to clarify her point, after she'd already said it perfectly. She wasn't lucky. She was exhausted, but she hadn't quit. Not back then. Not now. She glanced at the photos on her shelf. One of her and her grandmother, young Nerisse holding a Lego set, wide-eyed, with the caption handwritten on the frame, "Build it better." Her grandmother raised her on wisdom, not excuses. "You never chase love," she used to say. "You stand still long enough to see if it walks beside you or walks away." That phrase used to sound poetic. Now it felt sharp. Nerisse had stood still, and Griffin had walked around her. She closed her laptop and let the silence hold her. For the first time in days, she allowed herself to remember how they started. Not the lie, not the table, not the text, but the beginning. Griffin Dawn was once a name on a client form. His assistant had reached out first. An upscale property in River North needed a design refresh. High profile, large budget. She thought it was spam at first, but when he walked into her office for the consultation, she noticed 2 things. He was quiet, not in a nervous way, controlled, and he listened. That was rare in her world. Most billionaires barked ideas. He asked questions, most expected to be catered to. He requested input. By the end of that first meeting, they were already talking layout flow and spatial psychology like they shared a language. It wasn't attraction, not right away. It was rhythm. He liked how her mind worked. She liked that he noticed. The work began. Late-night emails turned into early morning coffees. He dropped by during builds. He asked about her vision. He read every proposal, then started offering to fund some of them. Not all, just one or two. Strategic ones, no strings, or so he said. She'd told herself he was different. Different than the men who came before. Before Griffin, she dated someone in law school who once told her she was intimidating. After him, a surgeon who needed her to play small in public. Then a professor who said she was too ambitious, too sharp, too much. Griffin said none of that. He said, "You're exactly the kind of woman most men regret not marrying." It felt like a compliment. Now she heard the warning behind it. He admired her, but never matched her. He wanted her strength close enough to claim, but not close enough to be challenged by it. That difference mattered. She blinked, coming back into the room. Ari had once asked her, "Did he ever apologize for the way he disappeared during your first pitch to the mayor?" She hadn't thought about that night in a while. Nerisse had been invited to present her design for a new arts center downtown. It was big, life-changing. Griffin promised he'd be there. He didn't show. Said something about a scheduling mix-up. She gave him grace. Now she realized it wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern. He was always somewhere else when it mattered, but always texting "love you." He was there for the photo, not the process. She breathed in deeply. Her phone buzzed. Ari again. "You good?" She replied, "I'm thinking." "Thinking what?" "About how I let someone next to me, but not beside me." "Sis, if that's not a sermon." "I'm not sad. I'm just awake. Say less." "You want tacos?" She smiled. "Meet you at 7. She closed the texts and turned back to her sketches. If love wouldn't stand beside her, she'd build alone. But she wouldn't build small. She would design a life so rooted, so whole, that no man could take credit for her worth ever again. And if someone ever came into her space again, he'd walk, not to impress her, but to stand still with her, and stay. Ari was already at the taco spot when Nerisse arrived. It was a small street-side kitchen on 18th and Loomis. Family-run, no pretense, just bold flavors, loud music, and patio chairs that scraped the pavement every time someone stood too fast. Ari loved the place, said it reminded her of everything that felt real in a city where too many things were curated. Nerisse dropped her bag, slid into the seat across from her, and exhaled, like she hadn't realized she'd been holding her breath all day. Ari didn't ask questions right away. She handed over a horchata and said, "The steak's better than the chicken today. I already ordered for you." Nerisse smiled. "You always know." "Of course I do. You're too polite to eat steak around people who don't know you love it. You think I'm too polite?" "I think you trained yourself to be palatable." Nerisse's smile faded slowly. Ari leaned forward, softer now. "I mean, with him, with Griffin, you were lighter, edited, like you didn't want to be too much for him to handle." Nerisse didn't argue. Instead, she stared at the condensation on her drink. "I did. I made myself smaller sometimes." "Why?" "Because he made it seem like I didn't need to be loud to be loved, and I thought that meant I should whisper." The food arrived, and for a while they ate in silence. "I don't hate him," Nerisse said after a few bites. "I do," Ari replied without hesitation. Quietly, professionally, spiritually. Nerisse laughed. "I don't want to hate him," she added. "I want to learn from him. That's worse for people like him. You're going to turn that man into a TED Talk." "I already did." "In my mind." Ari shook her head, grinning. "You know what the biggest lesson was?" Nerisse said quietly. "What?" "That sometimes people treat you well in the beginning, not because they love you, but because they want to be seen next to you." Ari leaned back. "Say that again." "Griffin loved my shine. not my shadow. Not the parts of me that cried when I failed a pitch or the parts that needed reassurance. He only knew how to show up when I was winning. And when you weren't, he'd disappear, distract, send flowers. Ari nodded slowly. Performative support. Exactly. They let that hang in the air for a minute. I used to think real love was about being chosen over and over, Nerisse said. Now I know. It's about being seen clearly, especially in the ugly moments. Did you feel seen by him? Only when I was packaged. Only when I looked like something he could use to soften his image. You know how many times I saw his friends treat their partners like props? I thought we were different. You weren't. No. Now what? I keep going. I keep building. I make sure the next man who gets near me knows I'm not something to polish. Ari raised her drink. To being unpolished. They clinked glasses. As they finished eating, Ari glanced down at her phone. By the way, your firm got mentioned on the City Design Council's feed. Nerisse's brows lifted. For what? Something about your Riverbend project. They tagged it as a model for sustainable luxury. Nerisse blinked. They never tag boutique firms like mine. They did today. She sat still for a second. Griffin didn't fund that project. He wanted to, but I refused. I know. That's why this matters. A few feet away, two women passed their table. One of them stopped mid-step, turned, and smiled. You're Nerisse Calder, right? She asked. Nerisse nodded slowly. I interned at Holloway Design last summer. You spoke on the panel. I just wanted to say, your story inspired me. You made me believe I didn't have to wait for permission to start. Nerisse smiled gently. Thank you. That means everything. The woman nodded, then walked away. Ari grinned. And that, right there, is why you'll always be fine. No man makes you relevant. Nerisse sipped her drink, still warm from the moment. It was small, but it was enough. Later that night, back at her apartment, Nerisse sat in bed with her laptop open. She wasn't tired yet. She pulled up an old folder labeled Someday Projects. Inside were mock-ups she'd created 2 years ago, designs for community, spaces, public parks, and arts centers she dreamed of building one day. Most of them had been shelved because they didn't have big money backers. Griffin once told her those weren't scalable. But she wasn't interested in scale anymore. She was interested in soul. She reopened one file and started refining the sketches. This one was different. A center with co-working studios, free therapy pods, and wellness rooms in the middle of underserved neighborhoods. No names on the door, no billionaire ribbon cutting. Just impact. She worked for hours. At 2:08 a.m., she finally saved it under a new name, Clarity Center, Bronzeville. She closed her laptop, turned off the light, and rolled over in bed. No tears, no lingering ache, only a quiet kind of strength. The kind she didn't need permission to hold. The kind no man could take credit for. And when she finally drifted off to sleep, she dreamed of bricks. Bricks and light. Bricks and peace. Because when you're done being convenient for someone else, you finally start becoming real for yourself. 3 days. That's how long she stayed silent. Not one reply. Not one callback. Not one chance for him to twist the story before she finished writing her own ending. Griffin didn't take it well. By the afternoon of the second day, he'd left 6 voicemails, 3 missed, FaceTime calls, and an email titled, "Please don't shut me out." Nerisse read none of them. Ari had confiscated her phone at one point, just to prove a point. You give a liar a stage, he'll put on a show, Ari said, scrolling through the texts. He's rehearsing. Nerisse stayed quiet. She wasn't avoiding him to get attention. She was giving herself space to feel what she hadn't allowed herself to feel in 2 years. Disrespected. Griffin was always so careful, so calculating, that the lie felt almost mechanical. Not emotional, not desperate, just strategic, as if he'd done this before and was simply minimizing the fallout. But he didn't account for her silence. The third morning, he showed up at Stonewell. Tyler buzzed her. He's here, she whispered, like Griffin was a walking lawsuit. Nerisse didn't flinch. Send him to the meeting room. The team's eyes tracked him as he passed through the office. Some recognized him from the articles, others from Instagram photos Nerys had quietly deleted 2 nights ago. Either way, everyone watched. He stood in the conference room like it was foreign territory. It was. This wasn't his boardroom. These weren't his people. This was her empire. She walked in a minute later, tablet in hand, expression unreadable. Griffin. Nerys. She shut the door behind her. He gestured at the empty chairs. Can we sit? I'll stand. He nodded, eyes scanning her. You look good. She didn't answer. He cleared his throat. I came to apologize. In person. You could have done that Thursday night. I panicked. I thought if I could talk to you before you drew conclusions. You sent a text while you were kissing another woman. There were no conclusions to draw. His jaw tensed. I didn't sleep with her. I never said you did. She meant nothing. It was stupid. And I should have told you. I should have called you the moment I saw you walk in. I should have. You should have not lied. He paused. Her tone didn't rise. Her posture didn't shift. But her words cut deeper than anything he was prepared for. I miss you, he said. She nodded slowly. I miss the idea of you. Griffin looked up. I miss what I thought we had. I miss thinking someone loved me without performance. I miss believing I could trust someone with my unedited self, but I don't miss you, not the version that sent that text. He opened his mouth. She raised a hand. I didn't ask you here to argue. I needed to see if you had the courage to show up in daylight the way you show up in curated moments. I was scared. No, you were careless. Silence filled the room. I didn't cheat on you, Nerys. You betrayed me. There's a difference. Not to me. He sat back in the chair. The posture of a man who just realized the door was closing, quietly but completely. I was going to propose again. I'd been planning it. This spring, you already gave me a ring, she said softly. It just didn't come with presents or honesty. I can change. I don't want you to. He blinked. She stepped toward the door, then paused. Do you know why I didn't confront you that night? He shook his head. Because I didn't want to save something that wasn't real. He stood quickly. It was real. It was polished. It was presentable. It was carefully framed, but it wasn't real. She opened the door. We're done, Griffin. Quietly. Completely. He stared at her for a long moment. Then, without another word, he left. She shut the door behind him and leaned her head against the wood for just a second. One breath. Just one. Then she turned back to the room, picked up her tablet, and went straight into a pitch meeting 5 minutes later. Because the world didn't stop for the wrong man, and neither would she. Later that night, back at Ari's place, they sat on the floor eating ice cream straight from the tub. Salted caramel. No spoons. Just plastic forks because Ari refused to do dishes when emotional labor was involved. He came to the office? Ari asked. You kicked him out. Calmly. Did he cry? No. But his face broke a little. Ari nodded like that was good enough. You feel better? I feel clearer. You done with him for good? I was done the moment I saw him lie through his teeth without blinking. Ari pointed her fork at her. You're a better woman than me. I would have poured cold coffee in his shoe. You don't drink coffee. Still. Symbolism matters. They both laughed. Then, Ari got quiet. You still want love? Nerys thought about that. Yes, she said finally, but not at the cost of my peace. I want love that doesn't need to be managed. Love that doesn't need to be earned with silence. I want presence, not performance. Ari smiled. You'll get that. I know. She said it not with hope, but with certainty. Because the moment you stop trying to be the perfect version of what someone wants, you make space for who's meant to meet the real you. And Nerys Calder was finally done hiding. Not behind a man. Not behind a brand. Not behind a polished life. She was standing fully, finally, and quietly in her own name. By Friday morning, Griffin's name had disappeared from her phone entirely. Blocked. Removed from her emergency contacts. Gone from her calendar. No trace of him lived in her inbox. Even the few high-profile contacts he once introduced her to had been deleted. Not out of spite, out of necessity. Nerys didn't want reminders. She didn't want half-formed excuses slipping through the cracks of her peace. She wanted space. Clean, unshared, undisturbed space. The kind you give yourself when you finally realize love without respect is just decoration. At 9:12 a.m., she walked into her firm wearing her cobalt blue suit. The one Griffin once said made her look too powerful for men to approach. She wore it with pride that morning. No lipstick, just precision. Her assistant, Asa, handed her a folder. Westbridge called. They want you to review their new downtown build. Said they heard you were independent now. Nerys's brow lifted. Independent? That was their word. She smiled faintly. Good. Make sure they know I always was. She walked into her office and looked out at the skyline again. Same buildings, same streets. But for the first time in a long time, she felt untethered. The view didn't feel like a ceiling anymore. It felt like a launch pad. She made calls, reviewed plans, handled clients, but beneath the flow of business, something in her chest stayed sharp. Not pain, focus, the kind that comes when you finally see your life without someone else's fingerprints on it. Around midday, she stepped outside for air. Chicago in March was still cold, but not unbearable. The sun tried its best between grey clouds. She walked to a corner cafe she used to frequent before Griffin, before the relationship consumed her weekends. The barista remembered her name, remembered her drink. Long time, he said, smiling. Still doing those tiny buildings with fancy walls? She laughed. Now we're doing bigger buildings with warmer walls. Glad to hear it. You always looked like you were building something more than spaces. She nodded and thanked him. As she turned to leave, someone held the door open for her. A man, late 30s, tall, charcoal coat, calm. He stepped aside, then noticed her. You're Nerys, right? She blinked, caught off guard. Yes. I've been seeing your name on the City Works Initiative files. She tilted her head. And you are? Eland Roan, Urban Development. We're co-sponsoring the South Corridor project. She shook his hand. His grip was firm but not forceful. His voice was steady but not staged. He didn't glance at her phone or scan the cafe behind her. He looked at her. You presented at that city panel last year, he added. Your ideas on communal elevation stuck with me. Most people didn't agree, she said. I did. They stood quietly for a beat. He gestured at the bench near the corner window. I don't mean to interrupt your day, but if you've got 5 minutes, I'd like to ask your take on something. She glanced at the time. 5 minutes. They sat. He pulled out a folded sketch from his notebook, an old-school planner, no screens. We're reworking the Westside Community Co-op. My team's split on making it open floor or segmented. She studied it. Open floor. Add modular dividers. Let the people choose how they use the space. He smiled. That's what I said. She nodded. People don't like being told how to heal. They want options. He paused. May I be honest? Always. I've heard about you. Through the circles. The headlines. Her face didn't change. But the way you speak, that's not someone rebuilding. That's someone reclaiming. She looked at him, steady. I don't want to be known for surviving him, she said quietly. You won't be. Not if you keep leading like this. He didn't ask for her number, didn't pitch a collab, didn't follow her out. He just stood, offered his hand again, and said, if you're ever open to revisiting the co-op project, I'd like to walk it with you. No titles. Just two people who want to see better things get built. She nodded. We'll see. He smiled once and walked away. No pressure, no manipulation, no control. Just presence. That night, she told Ari about him. He cute? Ari asked, mouth full of popcorn. Nerys shrugged. He's kind. Same thing when you're grown. I don't know if I'm ready for kind. That's the thing. You don't need to be ready. just honest. What if I'm still healing? Then let him see the stitches. If he flinches, he's not for you. Nerys didn't text Eland, didn't look him up, didn't plan a next meeting, but she saved his name in her mind, not as a possibility, but as a reminder. Not all men hide behind charm. Some walk with quiet. Some speak to build, not bend. And some look at a woman rebuilding herself and don't try to interrupt the construction. They just stand at the sidewalk and wait to see what she becomes. Nerys picked Lunette on purpose, not to relive the pain, to confirm her growth. It had been 2 weeks since Griffin's apology. The quiet kind, the type that came with tailored words, not deep change. He'd tried again, through a mutual friend this time, asking if she'd meet him once more. No drama, just talk. She agreed, but on her terms. Same table, same night of the week, same restaurant, because this time she wouldn't be blindsided. She'd be in full control. That Thursday, she arrived at 6:58 p.m. sharp, not a minute late, not too early. She wore a deep emerald green dress, simple, structured, sleeveless, and without apology. Her hair pulled back. No jewelry, just presence. She didn't need sparkle. She wasn't the one begging to be seen. Griffin arrived 3 minutes later. Polished, intentional. He always looked the part. That was the problem. He smiled cautiously, slid into his seat, and folded his hands on the table like he was negotiating a merger. "You look amazing," he said softly. She didn't answer. The waiter approached. She ordered sparkling water with lemon. He asked for a glass of wine. Silence took the first few minutes. She didn't break it. He finally leaned forward. "Thank you for coming." "I didn't come for you," she replied. "I came for myself." Griffin nodded slowly. "Fair. I needed to see the place one more time," she continued. From the other side of the lie, with clear eyes, he winced. "I was stupid. You were careful. That's different." He frowned. She went on. "What you did wasn't a slip. It was a choice. You chose someone else's company. You chose to text me like nothing happened. You chose to think I wouldn't see it. I thought you weren't in town. That was your mistake. I didn't mean to disrespect you, but you did. And the worst part is, I don't even think you felt bad about it, until I didn't respond." Griffin's fingers tensed slightly. "I didn't know how to fix it. You can't fix what you were never willing to value." The waiter returned briefly, placed the drinks down, then stepped away. He watched her sip her water. "You always had a way of making the truth sound final. It is, Nerys, I messed up. But what we had, what we built, can't just be gone." She shook her head slowly. "You didn't build with me. You stood beside what I built. That's different. I supported you. You posted me." His breath caught. "You were there for the photo ops, the keynotes, the fundraisers. But when I needed presence in real ways, you sent texts, or flowers, or excuses. I was running my company too, and I never asked you to stop. I just asked you to be honest." He leaned forward. "I'm still in love with you." She didn't blink. "You loved being seen with me. That's not the same." A sharp silence settled over the table. He shifted in his seat. "If you're done, why come here? Why agree to this? I wanted to look you in the eye and tell you what I've never said out loud." He waited. "You weren't the villain, but you were never the partner either." His shoulders dropped. A breath left his chest that he didn't realize he'd held. She placed her glass down. "I'm not bitter, Griffin. I'm not angry. I'm not hurt anymore." He looked up. "I'm done." This time, the silence came with weight. Finality. She pushed her chair back. Slowly, gracefully, her head high. Griffin rose instinctively, but she didn't wait for him. She turned, walked out of Lunette. Again, only this time, there was no ache in her chest, only clarity in her spine. Back outside, the air was crisp, a hint of spring, hiding beneath the wind. She crossed the street with calm, not urgency. Every step she took felt measured, not to escape a moment, but to enter a new one. She didn't check her phone, didn't replay the conversation, didn't second-guess her words. She was done wondering if she was too much, done hoping someone would see her clearly. She had seen herself, and that was enough. That night, she didn't call Ari, didn't tell anyone about the meeting. She didn't need to process it out loud. She had said what needed to be said, not to salvage a past, but to secure her future. She pulled open the door to her building, greeted her doorman with a warm smile, and rode the elevator up in silence. Her apartment greeted her the way it always did, plants leaning toward, the window light, art lining the hallway, and books stacked everywhere. No one else's shoes at the door, no extra toothbrush by the sink, just her. Fully, she stepped out of her heels, pulled her hair loose, and poured herself a small glass of red. She walked to the window, curled up on the couch, and whispered out loud for the first time that day, "I did it." Not because she needed the reminder, but because her piece deserved to be spoken into the room. Friday morning came with soft light and silence. No missed calls, no panicked voicemails, no half-hearted flowers delivered to her office. Griffin got the message, and Nerisse didn't feel a drop of guilt. She moved slowly through her morning, coffee in one hand, architectural, magazine in the other, jazz humming low from her kitchen speaker. She wore a sweatshirt and leggings, not the armor of a woman trying to prove her strength. Just comfort, just honesty. It was the first time in years she didn't feel the weight of being perfect. By noon, she stopped by her firm to sign off on a materials order for the South Loop client. While there, she reviewed design boards for the new Bronzeville project. She'd been privately sketching since her conversation with Eland. It wasn't official yet. No press releases, no campaign, no public bids, but it felt real. Later in the afternoon, her phone vibrated. A text, unknown number. "Still owe you a walkthrough. No pressure. If the answer's no, I'll take it with respect." She stared at it for a beat. No pressure, no guilt-tripping. Just space. She responded simply, "Tomorrow, noon. Send the address." He did. The next day, she dressed light. Cream trench coat, white sneakers, hair in a soft bun, nothing heavy, not even expectations. She arrived early. The co-op building was in transition, red brick wrapped in scaffolding, steel beams ready for reinforcements. Inside, echo filled every hallway, unfinished floors, exposed ceilings, the kind of place that didn't ask you to be polished. It just asked you to show up real. Eland met her by the service elevator. "Appreciate you coming. You said it wouldn't be formal." "It's not." They walked the space. He pointed things out. A room planned for rotating art by local kids, a shared pantry. That would run 24/7, modular classrooms for adult education at night. "It's not glamorous," he said. "But it's necessary." He nodded. They reached the back, where a wall of windows framed the afternoon sun. "You ever feel like places have memories?" she asked softly. "Buildings carry energy. Even when they're empty." She turned to him. "Then, this place is waiting to breathe again." He didn't respond with words. He just looked at her, fully, quietly. "I saw your press quote last year," he said. "The one where you said you wanted to build dignity, not just design." She gave a faint smile. "They edited that sentence, took out the part where I said I wanted to build for women who keep getting overlooked. I didn't miss that part." She shifted slightly, surprised. "I read the full version. You posted it yourself, before the media cut it down." She nodded once. "I forgot about that. I didn't." They stood for a moment, letting the quiet settle. "You ever think about partnerships again?" he asked, carefully. "Not the romantic kind, the working kind." "I'm cautious. I figured. I've had people offer before. Some meant it, some wanted credit. I want results. Credit's optional." She looked at him, measured, sharp, calm. "I'll think about it." "That's more than I expected." He smiled, and she didn't smile back, but her eyes softened. On her way home, she didn't analyze every word he said. She didn't replay their conversation looking for motives. She just sat with the feeling. Easy. Warm. Still. A few blocks from her apartment, she stopped by a small bakery she used to frequent before life got too busy. The owner, Mrs. Arliss, was at the register like always. "Haven't seen you in a minute," the woman said. "Been busy." Mrs. Arliss narrowed her eyes kindly. "Busy with the wrong things or the right ones? Bit of both." She nodded like she understood. "Still like lemon almond?" Nerisse smiled. "Always." The woman handed her the pastry and added a second, free of charge. "For clarity," she said. "Costs more than sugar these days." Nerisse laughed quietly. She walked home with a bag in hand and a new name circling in her mind. Clarity Center. Not just a concept anymore, not a maybe, but a plan. One she'd pitch quietly, build slowly, and open without fanfare. Because she didn't need headlines. She needed impact. That night, she stood on her balcony with a cup of tea, city lights blinking like distant promises. She wasn't waiting to be chosen. She was choosing herself. And the peace that came with that didn't need to be explained. It just needed to be lived. Monday morning came with rain. Not a storm. Not heavy. Just a soft, steady drizzle that made the sidewalks glisten and the air smell like clean pavement. Nerisse stood at her window watching the city move, umbrellas in hand, taxis, splashing through puddles, early risers bundled in neutral coats. She didn't rush. Her first meeting was at 10, and for once, she didn't need to be the first person in the building. She took her time. She poured coffee, made toast, fed her plants, opened the email from the City Design Council and saw her name listed under a new heading. Independent architect selected for Community Impact Series. She exhaled through her nose, quiet and proud. That headline had nothing to do with Griffin. No one could say she was selected because of him, or through him, or with him. She was chosen because she earned it. When she stepped into the office, her staff clapped softly, unscripted. Someone had taped the headline to the conference room glass. She laughed. "Y'all did this like I won an Oscar." Tyler grinned. "You did. But for the right role." Even her office felt lighter. She sat at her desk and stared at the blank whiteboard wall in front of her. This had always been her idea zone. Now, it was about to hold something new. She uncapped a marker and wrote across the top in big block letters. The Clarity Center, she underlined it. 3 times. This wasn't just an idea anymore. She'd already begun the first drafts. After her walkthrough with Eland, the vision became sharper. They didn't talk about anything personal, no small talk, no probing, but the way he moved, the way he respected the process, told her enough. He wasn't trying to own anything. He was trying to support something. By 11:15, she was in the middle of a pitch meeting when her phone buzzed. She ignored it. But when she checked later, her breath stilled for a second. It was a text from her father. He didn't text often. Their relationship was distant, cordial but strained. "Saw your name in the paper. Proud of you. Your mother would be too." She stared at it. She hadn't heard him say those words in over a decade. Not when she launched Stonewell. Not when she landed her first city contract. Not even when she was featured in the Business Tribune last year. She responded simply, "Thank you. That means more than you know." Then she turned off her screen, breathed deeply, and went back to work. Success had a different kind of echo when it wasn't tied to anyone else's shadow. That night, Ari showed up at her apartment with takeout and 2 bottles of wine. "You are officially Chicago's favorite architectural badass," she said, dropping bags on the kitchen island. Nerisse smiled. "I'll add that to my business card." They sat on the couch, watching old reruns and talking about nothing important. But somewhere between laughing and stealing the last dumpling, Ari went quiet. "You think you'll ever see him again?" she asked softly. "Griffin? Yeah, probably. This city's not that big. Do you think he'll ever try again?" "Maybe. Would you ever let him back in?" Nerisse didn't hesitate. "No, not even if he changed? If he changed, it would make him better for someone else. Not me." Ari nodded slowly. That's grown. I loved him, Ari, deeply, but I spent too much time loving him from a place of hope, not reality. I kept thinking he'd meet me where I was, but he kept asking me to step back to make him comfortable. Don't settle for love that makes you small. Exactly. They clinked glasses. Nerys didn't cry that night. She didn't replay memories. She didn't wonder what ifs. She felt peace, real peace. Not silence in place of confrontation, not numbness instead of healing, but peace that came from finally choosing herself, without compromise, without guilt. As the city lights flickered outside, she looked around her apartment. The furniture, the walls, the photos, the color schemes, every inch of it was her, not a shared space, not a placeholder. Home. That night, she slept with the window cracked open, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't dream of being chased, misunderstood, or betrayed. She dreamed of light, of new ground, and of building something with no exit built in. Because this time, she wasn't designing a life that could be left. She was designing a legacy worth staying for. It was well past midnight, but Nerys couldn't sleep. Not because of stress, not because of sadness, but because her mind wouldn't stop building. Every time she closed her eyes, new floor plans appeared, interior layouts for the Clarity Center, materials she wanted sourced from sustainable local partners, potential room configurations that could serve both teens and elders under one roof. Peace didn't slow her. It activated her. She grabbed her sketchpad, curled up on the living room couch, and started mapping a new entryway design, one that didn't just welcome people but told them they belonged. The idea wasn't just to offer services, it was to offer wholeness. Her phone buzzed gently. A message from Eland. Looked into those prefabricated wall systems you mentioned, sent a doc to your inbox. Hope it's helpful, short, respectful, relevant, not a call, not a midnight thinking of you, just real, intentional presence. She replied, "Got it. We'll review in the morning. Appreciate you." There was something about him that wasn't demanding. He didn't hover or push. He simply offered value and stepped back. And that, more than anything, felt rare. She finished her sketch at 1:46 a.m., then, finally, allowed herself to rest. By the time the weekend rolled around, she'd completed the preliminary mock-ups and emailed Eland with a proposal, a joint development model that gave both her firm and his equal footing, with the option to allow neighborhood leaders a say in layout and space use. His response came within 3 hours. "This is the smartest equity structure I've seen pitched in months. I'm in if you are." That's all she needed. That Sunday, Nerys met Ari at a new rooftop cafe for brunch. It had been weeks since Griffin's name had come up, and neither of them missed it. Ari sipped her coffee. "So, when's the groundbreaking?" "Late June, if we secure approval. And this Eland guy, what about him?" "Do you like him?" Nerys paused. "I like how I feel around him. That's an answer. I don't have to be impressive with him, or guarded. I'm not watching my words or managing his ego. And nothing. I'm letting it breathe." Ari nodded. "You deserve that." Nerys leaned back in her chair. "For a long time, I thought I had to prove I was worthy of love, of being chosen. But I'm starting to realize the right kind of love doesn't ask for a performance. It meets you where you are. And if it's real, it doesn't rush. It builds." They clinked glasses, coffee to tea. Later that evening, Nerys sat at her kitchen island with her laptop open. She was finalizing the Clarity Center presentation for the community board. She paused midway through the proposal draft and opened a new page. She typed a new heading at the top, "Things I Know Now." And under it, she started a list. Love without consistency is a lie. Silence isn't strength if it's keeping you small. Texts that say "I love you" don't mean anything if actions say "I don't see you." Some people treat you like home until they find a shinier hotel. Let them check out. You don't have to compete for peace. The way someone shows up in your worst moment tells you everything. She added one more. Closure doesn't come from apologies. It comes from truth and standing in it. She hit save. She closed the document. And she closed the chapter. The following week, she and Eland walked the construction site together. This time, it wasn't theoretical. Permits were cleared. Funding was secured. Crews had started clearing the lot. They stood in boots and hard hats while the wind kicked up dust between them. "You ready?" he asked. Nerisse stared out at the foundation lines being drawn. "I was born ready," she said. They walked side by side along the outer perimeter, talking through placement options and material sourcing. At one point, she noticed he slowed his steps to match hers. She hadn't said a word about pacing. He just adjusted without comment. That, she thought, was love in its earliest form. Not flowers, not gifts, just paying attention. When they reached the edge of the site, she paused. "You know what I want most?" she said. "What?" "For this place to serve women who were told their feelings were too loud, their vision too ambitious, their presence too intimidating." He nodded. "Then we'll make sure every brick speaks that truth." She glanced at him. "We..." He didn't blink. "If you'll allow it." She didn't answer right away. But when they walked back to the site trailer, she handed him a second copy of the building renderings. That was her answer. Later that night, Nerisse stood in her apartment, staring at the reflection of herself in the hallway mirror. She looked the same, but she wasn't. This version of her didn't flinch when she heard her ex's name, didn't shrink when the spotlight found her alone, didn't second-guess if she was worth choosing. She chose herself, and because of that, she was finally free. If you've ever walked away from someone who only loved the version of you they could manage, if you've ever chosen peace over performance and clarity over confusion, and if you believe love should never ask you to shrink, like this video, drop A in the comments if you're building something real, and subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories, where dignity isn't loud, but it never gets forgotten. The headlines didn't mention Griffin. They didn't have to. Architect Nerisse Calder, announced as lead designer on Chicago's new Clarity Center from boutique, firm to city legacy, Calder's quiet rise designing for dignity, a community-first approach. It was all over the business pages, local bulletins, and neighborhood newsletters, her inbox filled with congratulations from past clients and respected colleagues. The phone didn't stop ringing at Stonewell. And still, none of it rattled her. She moved like she had planned this all along, because part of her had, not for the attention, but for the meaning. What caught her off guard, though, was the tone of the whispers. Some congratulated her, others speculated. "She's definitely still with that Dawn guy. She must have leveraged that relationship to get city support. I heard the breakup was PR, a cover." She didn't respond. But she knew who had started those conversations. Not directly, not publicly, but strategically, just like he always operated. Griffin knew how to bend narratives without ever being quoted. The week after the announcement, she was invited to a live radio interview, local, but with a solid audience. The host opened with warmth. It's rare to see someone rise so gracefully, especially after a very public partnership. "How did you manage to stay so composed?" Nerisse smiled gently into the mic. "Because I never built anything dependent on someone else's name. I didn't survive something. I returned to myself." The host blinked. "That's powerful. It's true. You're not worried. People will credit your past relationship for the opportunities you've earned. I'm not interested in correcting people who only know headlines." The studio went still. And then the phones lit up with women calling in, crying, cheering, saying thank you, not for drama, for dignity. Afterward, she walked out of the building into sharp spring air. The sky was clear, the city was loud, and yet, she felt untouchable. Not because she was bulletproof, but because nothing stuck to someone who refused to carry shame. That evening, as she returned to her apartment, her doorman handed her a small package. No label, no note, just her name written neatly on top. Inside, a photo. It was from a gala 2 years ago, her and Griffin smiling, her hand resting lightly on his chest. Someone had folded it neatly in half. There was only one word scribbled on the back: regret. She didn't pause. She didn't panic. She dropped it in the trash on her way to the elevator. When she stepped inside her apartment, the city lights poured through the windows like calm. She unwrapped her scarf, slipped off her coat, and stood for a long minute in the stillness. Then she walked to her kitchen and opened her laptop. A new email from Eland sat at the top. Permit review went through. Green lights official. You ready to meet the neighborhood board? She replied, let's schedule it. No fanfare, no drama, just momentum. That Saturday, she met Eland and the city liaison at a small community center in South Shore. The room was packed. Elders, students, business owners, pastors, single moms, and city reps. She didn't present slides. She just stood at the front and told them what the Clarity Center would be. Not hers, theirs. She talked about quiet rooms for reflection, workforce pods for young professionals, free therapy once a week, rotating cultural exhibitions curated by local artists. Someone asked her how she planned to keep it from becoming another gentrification trap. Her answer was simple. We don't name donors on walls, we don't sell memberships, and we don't build anything we haven't asked the neighborhood to weigh in on. The room went still. Then a woman from the third row stood up. You serious about that? Nerisse nodded. We're holding open design workshops, no architectural jargon, just space for input. Another man added, you're the first person who came in here without a pitch deck or empty promises. I'm not selling you anything, she said. I'm inviting you in. After the meeting, Eland caught up to her outside. You didn't flinch once. I wasn't raised to. You were raised to lead. He didn't say more. He didn't ask to come up. He didn't linger. He just walked her to her car, held the door open, then said, I'm glad we're building this. She nodded. So am I. As she pulled away, she looked at her reflection in the rearview mirror. No makeup, no gold hoops, no layers, just her, unarmored, unbothered, unshakable. Sunday evenings used to feel heavy, the looming weight of another week, of scheduled meetings, partner expectations, curated appearances, and Griffin's texts asking her to be flexible with her own calendar. But this one felt clean. It was the first Sunday night in a long time that Nerisse felt no pressure to perform, no need to shrink herself to make a relationship smoother. She was curled up on her balcony chair with a fleece blanket, a cup of ginger tea, and her tablet glowing softly in her lap. She wasn't reading blueprints tonight. She was reviewing names. The Clarity Center would open in 9 months, and with Eland's help, she was establishing a board made up of actual residents from South Shore, Bronzeville, and Englewood. People who didn't just speak in policy terms, but in lived experience. Single parents, teachers, first-time business owners, nurses, a formerly incarcerated man who now ran a woodworking program for teens. This wasn't going to be a polished, non-profit showcase. It was going to be something deeper, built from the ground up, honestly and collectively. Her phone buzzed. Eland, update. Alvarez confirmed for the youth co-chair. She's all in. Wants to meet you over lunch Wednesday. Nerisse, perfect. She was my first choice. Eland, mine too. Good taste. Nerisse, don't forget it. No emojis. No flirty punctuation. Just a natural rhythm. Safe. Clean. Confident. She closed the message, leaned back in her chair, and watched the skyline flicker in silence. At 10:22 p.m., a call came in from an unknown number. She debated answering. Something in her gut told her who it was. She let it ring out. No voicemail followed. But a minute later, a message came through. I'm sorry for how I handled everything. I see it now. You deserved more. Griffin, not blocked. Not saved. Just a number on the screen. She stared at it for a long time, then deleted it. She didn't feel a spike of anger, only distance and relief. The next day, she arrived at the construction site early. Workers had already begun clearing the east lot where the garden space would eventually go. Eland was already there too, clipboard in hand, walking through the outline with one of the city contractors. When he saw her, he smiled like seeing her there made sense. "You're early." "So are you." They walked the perimeter together. As they paused near a cluster of supply crates, he asked, "You ever think about what this building will mean years from now? When neither of us are in the photo. I think about that more than anything. And I wanted to speak for the women who never got to walk into a space that made them feel safe. I wanted to tell the next generation, you don't have to beg for dignity." He nodded. "Then we're building the right thing." She looked at him. "You believe that, don't you? Even when no one's watching?" "I do." And that was it. No grand gesture. No overreach. Just alignment. They spent the rest of the day working side by side. Her sketches became site notes. His input translated into practical scheduling. It was seamless, quiet, productive. That evening, she received a message from a teenage girl in Bronzeville. "I don't know if you'll see this, but my school counselor showed me your interview on the radio. I just want to say, you made me feel like I don't have to fake my voice to be respected. I want to do what you do one day." Nerisse replied, "Never shrink your voice, just sharpen it. You're already becoming." She locked her phone and sat in the quiet of her apartment. And that's when it hit her. She wasn't just moving on from Griffin. She was reclaiming years, moments spent filtering her tone, delaying her dreams, over-explaining her value. She was done being the acceptable version of herself. Now, she was the architect of her own life. And she'd built the kind of foundation no text, no whisper, no man could ever shake. The first brick was laid on a Thursday. There was no ribbon, no fanfare, no camera crew, just a few city workers, a quiet project lead, and Nerisse standing a few feet back in a cream trench coat, watching the foundation begin. She didn't need to hold the shovel. She didn't need her name carved into the side of the building. This wasn't about her anymore. This was about legacy. And this time, she wasn't chasing one. She was making one, with full awareness of every step. Eland walked up beside her, coffee in hand. "You're early." "Had to see it happen," she said. "It's not real until the first brick hits ground. It's real now." She nodded. A few steps ahead, the site crew laughed and exchanged tools. The sound was comforting. Normal. The world was still turning, even as something permanent began. "I remember when you first mentioned this to me," he said. "I was hesitant. You still are." She smiled. "Cautious is better than desperate." "You're neither," he said. "You're deliberate." That word stayed with her the rest of the day. Deliberate. She had spent years adjusting herself in rooms to be less threatening, more palatable, easier to support. Now, she was showing up exactly as she was, and no one was flinching. By 1 p.m., she was back in her office reviewing budgets. 2 interns had started that week, both young women from the South Side, both sharp, hungry, and wide-eyed. "Miss Calder," one of them said, stepping into her office. "The press wants a quote for the groundbreaking." Nerisse set her pen down. "Tell them it's not about the building, it's about what grows inside it." "That's it?" "That's it." The intern nodded, smiling to herself. "Understood." As she left, Nerisse returned to her sketchpad. Not because she needed to design more, but because she wanted to. The kind of joy she hadn't felt in months returned in quiet waves. And while she worked, her phone vibrated again. This time, a number she hadn't saved, but recognized. Griffin. She stared at it, let it ring. Then silence. A voicemail popped up. She didn't listen to it, but she saved it for later. Not because she wanted him back, but because closure wasn't always about deleting someone. Sometimes it was about hearing them try again, and knowing you'd never open that door. Later that evening, she met Eland for dinner. It wasn't planned, it wasn't formal. He texted her, and she said yes. They picked a quiet Ethiopian spot near Hyde Park. No white tablecloths, no ambient lighting, just real food and simple conversation. He asked about her early days, what made her start her firm when no one believed in boutique solo architects. She told him about being broke, eating noodles for weeks, and crying in the stairwell of her first office space when a supplier pulled out last minute. He didn't interrupt. He didn't try to fix it. He just listened. When the bill came, she pulled out her card. He raised a brow. "You don't have to cover everything," she said, smiling. He let her pay. Because it wasn't about control, it was about respect. As they walked back toward her car, he stopped. "I'm not going to pretend I know where this is going," he said. She looked up at him. "But I know how I want to show up if I stay." She didn't speak. "You don't need saving. You don't need constant validation. But I think you deserve steadiness. And I know how to be that." Her breath caught, not because it was poetic, but because it was plain and real. She stepped forward, stood closer, and looked him in the eye. "I've had enough of almosts," she said. "So if you stay, stay." He nodded. "I'm here." They didn't kiss. They didn't hug. They just stood under the streetlight, holding eye contact like a promise had been made. No performance, just clarity. And for the first time in a long time, Nerisse believed she wasn't walking toward a repeat of the past. She was building something new, brick by brick. And this time, it wasn't built on hope. It was built on presence. Word count target, 1,500 words. The soft launch of the Clarity Center wasn't announced in the press. There were no photographers, no influencers tagging locations, no long-winded speeches from politicians. Nerisse wanted it that way. What mattered most was the people it was built for, walking through the doors, seeing themselves in the space, feeling like it belonged to them. The very first session was a Saturday morning wellness circle, hosted by a local black therapist. Just 8 chairs, warm lighting, fresh tea, and a question on the whiteboard. What part of you needed a home this week? By noon, the first co-op pantry was stocked. By 2 p.m., teens were already seated in the modular learning pods Nerisse had designed herself, each with adjustable walls, noise-buffered corners, and color tones known to ease anxiety. She didn't give tours. She walked quietly, took notes, adjusted lights, and whispered with staff about what felt good and what didn't. This wasn't just architecture, it was healing. Later that afternoon, she stepped into the garden space at the back, still unfinished but already seeded. A few benches had been placed. Elan stood near one, speaking with an elder from the neighborhood who had donated books to the center's reading shelf. When he saw Nerisse, he gave her that same nod he always did. Not performative, not asking for anything. Just recognition. She joined them. The elder smiled. "You're the young woman behind this?" Nerisse smiled back. "One of many. You did something rare here," the woman said, motioning around. "You listened." Nerisse didn't say thank you. She simply nodded and let the words settle where they belonged. After the elder left, Elan glanced over. "You okay?" "I'm better than okay. You're quiet. I've spent so many years working toward this kind of feeling, and I didn't even know what it was until now." "What is it?" "Safety," she said, without having to earn it. They sat on the bench in silence for a while. Then he looked over. "Can I ask you something?" "You just did." He smiled. "May I ask another?" "Go ahead." "Why didn't you let Griffin speak when he called you last?" She looked at the garden ahead. "Because I already knew what he'd say. And I didn't need it anymore." He nodded slowly. "You ever think about how close you were to staying with him? To settling? All the time. What stopped you?" She glanced at him. "The moment I saw him lie to me like it was nothing and still send me love you in the same breath, I knew. I could never be in a life where affection and deceit sat at the same table." He didn't respond with comfort or praise. He just said, "I'm glad you trusted yourself." She looked at him. "And I'm glad you show up. I won't disappear, I know." That night, they didn't kiss. But when she got home, she opened a blank journal and wrote, "Love doesn't have to announce itself with a speech. It shows up when someone remembers what you said 2 weeks ago and brings it up like it mattered. It's presence, its follow-through, its peace. She closed the book, smiled to herself, and turned off her lamp. Sunday morning came with a rare kind of silence. No calls, no messages, no chaos. She made breakfast, eggs, toast, and fruit, and ate it by the window. Her phone buzzed once. A news alert. Griffin Dawn's firm under city review for misfiled grant application tied to Riverbend development. She read it once, then closed the notification. No anger, no smugness, just distance. She had no desire to watch him unravel. She just hoped that one day he'd sit with himself and tell the truth without an audience. Later that afternoon, she returned to the Clarity Center for the second round of community sessions, this time led by a former foster youth turned counselor. The group of women sharing stories in the reflection room ranged from 19 to 62. One young girl said, "I've never been in a space this soft where I wasn't expected to perform." Nerisse almost cried. She didn't. But she did step out into the hallway and lean against the cool wall for a moment, steadying herself. That night, she and Elon sat on the garden bench again. Same place, same time. He handed her a copy of the final budget report. She didn't even open it. "Tell me something," she said. "Anything. What made you text me that first time?" "I heard your name before I met you," he said. "But it wasn't the articles that stuck. What was it?" He looked at her. "You spoke on a panel where you said, 'I build places where women can take off their armor and still feel protected.' I knew I wanted to stand next to someone who knew how to do that." She was silent. Then, gently, "I was tired of carrying that armor. You don't need it anymore." She didn't respond. She just leaned into the quiet and let the moment hold her. Because love was no longer something she questioned. It was something she recognized. And this time, it came without lies. The morning she saw him again, she was on her way out of a breakfast meeting. Downtown, West Loop, just after 9 a.m. She stepped out of the cafe, reviewing notes on her phone about a community kitchen collaboration, when she caught a familiar shape in the corner of her eye. Broad shoulders, crisp suit, that carefully rehearsed walk. Griffin, standing across the street, holding a coffee cup and staring straight at her. She didn't freeze. She didn't flinch. She just lowered her phone, met his eyes, and waited. He didn't cross. He didn't wave. He just looked, as if unsure whether he was allowed anymore. He wasn't. She turned calmly, walked toward her car, and drove away. No words exchanged. No reaction required. At her office, she didn't bring it up. Not to Ari, not to her team, not even to Eland, who called around lunch to confirm speaker names for the next Clarity Center workshop. She kept moving. That was the quiet difference between then and now. Back then, Griffin appearing in her space would have rattled her, had her searching for meaning, signs, or closure. Now, she recognized it for what it was. A man realizing too late that the door was already gone. By afternoon, the incident was gone from her mind. She was too busy reviewing grant paperwork and preparing her short keynote for a women's leadership forum happening that weekend. Elin dropped by the office unexpectedly with plantains from her favorite Jamaican spot and a hard copy of their final schedule for the next board review. "You always know what I haven't eaten yet," she said, smiling. "You always forget," he said. "Balance." They sat in the conference room going over attendance projections. At one point, Eland leaned back in his chair and asked, "You okay? You've been sharper than usual today." Griffin showed up downtown this morning. Eland didn't react. He didn't say anything, just stood there, watching. "You want me to say something?" "No," she replied quickly. "I don't need him spoken to. I need him forgotten." Eland nodded once. Done. It was always like that with him. No overreaction. No ego. Just presence. After he left, she stayed behind for a while, finishing emails as the sun dipped behind the skyline. She felt something shift again that evening. Not a moment of pain, but a full circle confirmation. The story wasn't about Griffin anymore. The tension she once felt, the anxiety, the wondering, the what-ifs, had dried up. All that remained was a memory of who she used to be. The next morning, she led a design review with her team, visited the garden site, then joined Eland for a community dinner hosted at the Clarity Center's unfinished multipurpose room. By now, people recognized her. They didn't stare like she was a celebrity. They looked at her like she was theirs, a woman who chose to build something with them, not on top of them. During the dinner, an older man at her table said, "You've got calm eyes, Miss Calder. People trust calm eyes." She thanked him. That night, while walking to her car with Eland, she paused under the street lamp. "He saw me," she said. "Griffin?" "Yes." "And I saw him. But this time, I didn't see a man who broke me." "What did you see?" "A man I've already healed from." Eland didn't say anything. He just stood next to her, unmoving, quiet. And that was enough. Because love now wasn't noise. It was knowing someone would walk beside you without ever needing to ask where you were going. Griffin didn't stop at stairs across the street. 3 days later, his email landed in her inbox. Subject: "Can we talk?" Body: "I know I lost you. I know it's late, but I see things now I couldn't see before. Not about us, about me. If you have 10 minutes, just let me apologize the right way. I don't expect anything. I just need to say it, finally, face to face." Nerisse didn't reply. She didn't delete it either. She sat with it for an hour, not because she was tempted, but because there was a version of her 2 years ago who would have begged for these words. That version needed to witness this moment, not for closure, but for honor. Later that afternoon, Eland found her at the construction site, walking the second-floor slab before it was poured. "You look like you're thinking heavy." She handed him the tablet. Griffin emailed. He glanced over the message. "You want me to read it to you out loud, so you can hear how empty it sounds?" She chuckled. "No," she said. "I already read the part that mattered. The part where he needed 10 minutes? The part where he finally admitted it had nothing to do with me." Eland handed back the tablet. "So, you gonna meet him?" She paused. "Yes." Eland didn't argue. He didn't flinch. He just said, "Want me nearby?" She looked at him. "No. But thank you." The meeting happened the next evening. Same restaurant, different table. She arrived first, chose a booth by the window. Not the one she sat at the night she caught him, but one with a better view of the city she now claimed fully as hers. Griffin walked in, looking like a man who hadn't slept. He sat across from her, unsure of whether to speak first. She waited. "I wasn't ready for what you gave me," he finally said. She said nothing. "I told myself I loved you, and I did, in my way. But it was a love built on image, on timing, on convenience. You were real." Still, she said nothing. "I kept thinking love meant showing up when it was easy. I didn't know how to show up when it mattered." Now, her eyes lifted. "You knew," she said quietly. "You just didn't care to." He swallowed hard. "I don't expect forgiveness. You don't need to expect anything. This isn't about closure for you." He nodded slowly. "It's for you." "No," she corrected. "This is for the woman I used to be, the one who waited for you to act right. I'm here so she can watch me choose not to stay." Silence stretched. Then he whispered, "You were the best thing I never respected properly." She stood. "You were the loudest silence I ever walked away from." She left her untouched drink on the table and walked out without looking back. No weight in her chest, no ache in her throat, no tears, just certainty. Later that night, she stood in front of the Clarity Center under construction. Lights from the nearby poles cast a soft glow over the unfinished building. She ran her fingers across the raw brick edge and smiled. A name had been approved for the main wing, the Wynne Hall for Women Who Stay Standing. It was named after her grandmother, Mrs. Wynne Calder, the woman who raised her on calm strength and hard truth, the woman who taught her, you never need a man to see you clearly, you need a mirror that doesn't lie. The next morning, she shared the news with Ari over coffee. "Wait, you actually met him?" "I did. And he apologized. And I walked out." Ari grinned. "No slaps, no wine throws?" "None. Just words. And peace." That's almost disappointing. No, it was perfect. They clinked mugs, and by the end of the week, Griffin Dawn was yesterday's noise. That weekend, Nerisse delivered her keynote at the Women's Leadership Forum. She stepped onto the stage in a deep burgundy suit. No jewelry, no notes, just a small card with a quote from her grandmother tucked in her pocket. She stood behind the podium, looked out at hundreds of women from every walk of life, and said, "Sometimes the greatest love story isn't the one where you're chosen. It's the one where you choose yourself, finally, fully, without waiting for anyone to see your value. We spend too much time performing strength instead of protecting it. So protect yours, not just with boundaries, but with joy." The room fell still, and then rose in applause. That night, back at the garden behind the Clarity Center, Eland waited on their usual bench. She walked up quietly, hands in her coat pockets. "I heard you shut it down today." She shrugged. "I said the truth." "You always do." He stood. "How'd it feel?" "Like the last page of a chapter I didn't know I was still writing." He looked at her carefully. "And what's next?" She stepped forward. "This," she said. Then, finally, she leaned in and kissed him. No fireworks, just a quiet, sure, honest kiss that didn't try to prove anything, because it didn't have to. It was already real. The Clarity Center opened quietly. No red carpet, no speeches, no influencers with ring lights, just a handwritten welcome sign, kids laughing from the open-floor study room, and sunlight. Streaming through the wide pane windows, Nerisse fought hard to keep in the final budget. It was soft. It was simple. It was sacred. Nerisse stood in the back of the communal kitchen, watching a group of schoolgirls unpack fruit baskets and fresh greens from a local farm. No one asked her to explain the project. No one interrupted her to pose for pictures. Because this space wasn't hers, it was theirs. That afternoon, she sat with Eland on the rooftop garden deck. Half the plants were still growing in, but the benches were full. Elders, couples, moms with strollers, kids chasing light. "What are you thinking?" he asked. That it was worth every delay, every sleepless night, every fight to protect what this was supposed to be. You protected it by building it right. They sat quietly, listening to the wind rustle through the newly planted trees. A few steps away, one of the teen volunteers Nerisse had mentored over the past year was explaining the purpose of each space to a group of city reps. She didn't need Nerisse's approval. She had her own voice now. That night, back at her apartment, Nerisse curled up on the couch with her journal in her lap. Not a work sketchbook, her personal one. She flipped to a blank page and wrote at the top, Chapter 9, Nothing to Prove. She started writing, "I don't need to perform strength anymore. I don't need to explain why I walked away. I don't owe softness to people who weaponized my vulnerability. Love doesn't need a grand entrance. It just needs to be honest. I know who I am. I know what I'm building. I know who's standing beside me." She paused, then added, "The life I want doesn't require an apology." The next morning, she received a delivery. No name on the card, just a quote. "I hope the flowers bloom for you, even where they once died." She didn't need to guess. Griffin always liked to show up after the season changed. She placed the flowers on her balcony, watered them once, and moved on. Later that week, she sat in on a youth panel hosted at the center. They discussed confidence, communication, and how to know when to walk away from friendships or relationships that drain more than they give. One girl raised her hand. "How do you know when it's not worth saving?" Nerisse answered softly, "When you're the only one doing the saving." The girl nodded slowly, like the words clicked deeper than expected. After the session, Eland walked her out. "That felt personal," he said. "They all do," she replied. He stopped her just outside the gates. "You've done something real here." She looked at him. "Not just me." "No," he said, "but you were the blueprint." She smiled. That weekend, they hosted the first community dinner in the event hall. The room was full. Folding chairs, borrowed speakers, donated catering from local chefs. Everyone brought something. No hierarchy, just shared space. Nerisse stood at the back, arms crossed gently, watching it unfold. Someone tapped her shoulder. A teen boy, about 16, shy but curious. "You're the one who built this place, right?" "Helped build it." He nodded. "It's cool. It feels safe here." "Good. That's the point." He hesitated. "You're the lady from the radio too?" She smiled. "Guilty." He lowered his voice. "That line you said, about choosing yourself? I wrote it down in my notebook. I never heard anyone say it like that." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "You hold on to that, all right?" He nodded and walked off. And right there, in the noise and movement and light of that ordinary moment, Nerisse felt something settle inside her. She wasn't rebuilding from pain anymore. She was living from wholeness, and it didn't need to be loud to be powerful. It just needed to be hers. The following Monday, Eland asked her something she hadn't expected. "Would you come with me to see my dad?" Nerisse paused, her mug halfway to her lips. Eland added, "You don't have to say anything. You don't even need to speak to him. I just want you there." She searched his eyes. There was no obligation in his voice, no pressure, just the quiet request of a man who'd learned to ask for support the hard way. "I'll come," she said softly. The drive to his father's care home outside the city was quiet, but not tense. Eland held the wheel with one hand, the other resting gently on the space between them. She didn't move it. She didn't need to. When they arrived, the nurse greeted them with a polite smile. "He's having a good morning." "That's rare." Eland nodded, his expression unreadable. They stepped inside the room. The man in the bed didn't flinch, didn't speak. His eyes were open, tracking the sunlight across the wall. Eland sat in the chair beside him. Nerisse remained by the door. For a few minutes, there was silence. Then, Eland spoke. "You told me I'd never be good with people. You said softness would get me crushed. You were wrong. I'm good with people, because I listen, because I care, because I don't need to dominate every room I enter." The man didn't blink, just breathed. Eland's voice didn't waver. "You didn't ruin me. You gave me a reason to choose better. And I did. I chose better in how I live, in who I love, and in what I build." He looked over his shoulder at Nerisse. "And I brought someone with me. The woman who reminds me that control isn't power. Kindness is." That was all he said. He stood, walked out. Nerisse followed. Outside, he exhaled like he'd been holding something in for years. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah. For once, I think I am." That night, they sat on the steps outside her apartment building, sharing a bowl of caramel popcorn and sipping ginger tea. Eland nudged her. "You ever think about what's next?" She smiled. "All the time. For real, though. I want a full-time garden at the center, a scholarship fund for the kids who work hardest. I want a kitchen that never runs out of groceries, and a studio for the girls who love design." He grinned. "That's a lot." "You asked." "I meant for you." She turned, curious. "What do you mean?" "I mean you, personally. Not just what you build." She was quiet for a long moment. "Peace," she said. "I want mornings where my nervous system isn't waiting for the next hit of chaos. I want a partner who speaks my name without sharpness. I want joy that doesn't have to be earned." Eland looked at her with something close to reverence. "I want all that too," he said. They didn't kiss, not yet, but the space between them was no longer filled with fear. It was full of possibility. By the end of the month, the Clarity Center hit capacity every weekday afternoon. The teens started calling it the Spot. One even made a logo. Another suggested custom hoodies. "Build it right," Eland whispered one afternoon, "and they'll take it further than you imagined." Nerisse watched the room fill again. The girl who was once overlooked had now created a place where no one had to be invisible to matter. One night, Griffin sent another text. This time, it wasn't a poem or a quote. It was a picture, a corner of their old townhouse being sold. She didn't reply. Instead, she deleted the thread. For good. Because healing is real. Because some stories don't need closure to be over. Because peace isn't what you find after revenge. It's what you live when you no longer need to prove anything. Back at the rooftop garden, Eland handed her a small box. She opened it slowly. Inside, a brass pendant. Simple, clean, engraved on it, still standing. Her throat tightened. "I wanted you to have something that says what I see," he said. She nodded once, deeply. "Thank you." And as the sun dipped low, casting gold across everything they built, Nerisse closed her eyes, placed the pendant over her heart and whispered, "I am." Not the biggest one they applied for, but the first that said, "We believe in what you're doing." Eland forwarded the email to Nerisse late at night with one line. "This is what happens when we stop begging for seats and build our own table." She smiled at the screen, pulled her hoodie closer, and sat back in her office chair. The center was quiet. Everyone had gone home. The scent of paint still clung to the hallway from the mural the girls had finished that week. Nerisse walked out to the main room. The lights were off, but moonlight poured through the large window facing the street. She stood there, arms folded, heart full. She thought about her first day walking into that empty building. No staff, no funding, just a binder, a vision, and 1,000 reasons people told her it wouldn't work. But it did, not perfectly, not without setbacks, but it worked, because she didn't stop, and because, when it mattered, he didn't stop either. The following weekend, Eland took her to the gallery space his mother once dreamt of opening. It sat on the corner of Franklin and Dearborn, closed for years, boarded up, dusty, forgotten. "I've been paying taxes on it," he said. "Didn't know what to do with it until now." She looked at him, head tilted. "What do you want to do with it?" "I want to give it to you. Not just the space. The name." He handed her an envelope. Inside was a sketch of a plaque, the Eden Room. "Eland," she whispered. "I remember you said you wanted the girls to have a studio," he said quietly, "where design wasn't just a dream but a skill that could free them. This is that space." Nerisse blinked back, the heat behind her eyes. "You're serious." "I'm always serious when I'm giving something back." She touched the glass window gently, then turned to him. "I won't make it about me. I'll make it about them. I know you will." They didn't need to say more. On April 12th, the ribbon cutting for the Eden Room happened under light rain and warm laughter. The teens showed up in their best clothes, cameras flashing, music humming in the background. Local press came. A few parents too. Eland gave a short, powerful speech about investment, dignity, and why quiet change lasts longer than noise. Then he stepped aside. Let her take the mic. Nerisse stood, calm, proud, no longer hidden. "This isn't about charity," she said. "It's about correction. We were told our dreams needed permission. This space says we don't. This room says we're already enough. We always were." Applause followed, and a standing ovation from the back, led by Eland. That night, they sat on the rooftop again, but this time, everything had changed. She didn't just lean on him. She let him hold her, not as someone who needed saving, but as someone who had survived and was choosing love. "Nerisse," he asked softly. "I think I'm ready to call this more than partnership." She laughed once, quietly. Yeah. I think I want the whole thing. You, us, all of it." Her lips parted, but she didn't rush an answer. Instead, she placed her hand over his. "I want that too." There was no dramatic kiss, no music swell, just the slow exhale of two people who'd fought for healing and now chose each other from a place of peace. In June, Griffin married the girl he left Nerisse for. She didn't attend. She wasn't invited. She was busy that day speaking at a leadership conference for non-profit founders. The same week, Eland was invited to the governor's roundtable on youth investment programs. They celebrated with grilled fish, mango juice, and a playlist of old-school R&B in her apartment. He danced offbeat. She laughed until her stomach hurt. Summer came with its own rhythm. Work, growth, stillness. Sometimes she missed the chaos, only because it was all she'd known. But peace looked good on her, and it looked even better on the kids who no longer had to earn love through perfection. One evening, Elon took her to a quiet beach. No fanfare, no cameras. He didn't kneel. He didn't ask. He placed a simple band in her palm and said, "If you ever want to build everything together, this is my answer in advance." Nerisse looked up at him, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then mine is yes, even before you ask." The first anniversary of the Eden Room came faster than anyone expected. The once empty space now buzzed with life. Sewing machines hummed, walls were filled with student-designed prints, and clients walked in weekly asking the same thing. Who did this? The answer: one of the girls, sometimes the quietest one in the group, sometimes the one who'd been kicked out of 3 schools, sometimes the one who thought she had nothing left to offer. But now, she had proof, not of perfection, but of progress. Griffin passed by the center once. He didn't enter, didn't say a word, but Nerisse saw the car, the driver, the hesitation. She stood at the window, arms crossed, a quiet strength in her posture. She didn't need an apology anymore, not because he was forgiven, but because she was no longer carrying his shame. When Elend walked in, wiping sweat from his brow, holding takeout, he noticed her stare. "You all right?" She nodded once. "I'm perfect." And for the first time, she meant it. Fall brought new interns to the program. Girls who'd heard about the center from cousins, school counselors, or social workers who saw what Nerisse had built and wanted it for others. One of them, a shy 14-year-old named Myra, came in on her first day clutching a sketchbook. Elend crouched beside her during orientation and asked, "Is that yours?" She nodded. "Mind if I see?" She opened the pages. Rough, emotional, bold. He smiled. "You remind me of someone I know." "Your girlfriend?" He grinned. "No." A queen. By December, Nerisse had been named one of Chicago's women who lead change. She didn't tell anyone at first. The article quoted her as saying, "Leadership isn't about volume, it's about direction." Elend framed it and placed it in her office. She rolled her eyes when she saw it, but secretly, she loved it. On Christmas Eve, Elend stayed late with her at the center, helping the girls finish holiday packages for families who couldn't afford them. The teens wrapped toys, decorated cupcakes, wrote handwritten cards with lines like, "You matter more than you know. Hope is real because you're still here. Someone sees you." At one point, Nerisse caught Elend staring at her across the room, his sleeves rolled up, flour on his jaw. "What?" she asked. He shook his head. "I never thought I'd fall in love with someone this way." She moved closer. "How?" "By watching you give everything, and still somehow have more." She blinked, heart tight. "I feel the same," she whispered. And he kissed her, right there, between bags of donated socks and tins of cookies. New Year's Eve, they didn't go out. They stayed in, made cocoa, laughed, watched a documentary about hip-hop's impact on fashion. At midnight, he turned to her. "No big goals this year?" She smiled. "Just one." "What's that?" "To stay soft and strong." At the same time, he leaned in, rested his forehead on hers. "I'll protect both." The final scene is quiet. Nerisse walks through the Eden Room alone one morning. Lights still off. The sun rising behind her. She touches the mural wall, where a quote reads, "We were never broken. We were always becoming." She looks around, smiles, and walks forward toward what healing built. If you've ever been called too soft for this world, if you've ever felt overlooked, underestimated, or discarded, this story is your reminder. You don't need permission to build something that heals others. You don't need validation to stand tall in what you've survived. And you don't need to yell to lead. Sometimes the most powerful justice is simply becoming everything they said you couldn't. Like, comment, and subscribe for more stories where quiet strength rises and builds legacy, only on Mr. Charles Stories.